Hey, folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident Gen Xer, and right over there is. Wait a minute. You're not John, but you will serve as a resident millennial. Am I correct? Welcome to the show, J. Edgar. How are you doing tonight? Low carb? Yeah. That sounds like what happens when you're not getting enough gas to your engine. As you folks may notice, I see that we've got some folks in there. I see RRC is there, D and Monk. Hopefully, we'll see a few more faces popping up. Ed, it's saying you have. Oh, hey, it says you're not having any audio, but you have audio now. So I don't know. It might have been user error. It might have been. But Ed, just in case people didn't hear it, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I had I had some Culvers over there, a bunless burger because I'm still going low carb, and now some nice unsweetened iced tea. God, I miss carbs.
So carbs, eh? Are you trying to get post-apocalyptic slimmed up? Get yourself ready for running, as it were. Is that
Well, it
it?
was more to the point I got to 250 and I couldn't sleep anymore because I laid down and I got heartburn. But I've been noticing a nice trimming effect going on as well over the past few months. So hey, I'll take one with the other.
Right, right. Um, I, you know, I so I I hit. I remember getting on the scale and hitting about 210, right? And
Yeah.
so the last time I got on the scale, and that's been a while. let me stress, a while. Um, and I was like, okay, 210. I got to make sure I'm toning down, that kind of thing. And then I had a surgery, and they checked me in, and they were like 205, and I'm like, okay, everything's working. So I haven't gotten back on the scale yet in a long time, but I'm pretty sure it's still at 210. Hasn't changed one bit, even though my love handles seem larger. I don't know, they fit my hands better, but that doesn't necessarily mean more weight. So I think I'm good.
I do believe that those are meant for somebody else to fit the hands.
Well, I got to lift myself up to sit down on the John. I mean, come on, and get myself off of it, right? I mean, I thought that's what those were for.
That must be one of those getting old things that I
Yeah,
don't understand.
at my age, the use for those things changes. I'm just saying, it's one of those things. But folks may notice that you are not John tonight. John, of course, is not able to be with us tonight. He has some personal John matters to take care of. Uh,
He's
but
doing John things.
but that doesn't matter. You can still hit the like button. You can hit the subscribe button. You can do all those wonderful things that matter, no matter what platform you're on. If it's just saying hi to us in D Live, that kind of thing. Hopefully the chat stays doing its normal thing, and we see chat from everywhere, because Lord knows that's crazy sometimes. But Ed, I I had something planned with John tonight. We were going to talk about some stuff, but it wasn't like, current event type stuff. We were going to be talking about like subversion and John Locke and stuff, just things. We had that
Stuff I
stuff.
would have to research at the last minute.
Right, right. And I didn't want to throw that at you. But
Bone.
yeah, who knew, right? Who knew? Um, but when it's all said and done, it's easy to find some stuff to talk about in the present day and age with somebody, so that they don't have to do a lot of research, because it really just takes one question, right? What's got you pissed off today? Right?
Yeah.
Because that's really, you can just ask anybody that simple question, can't you? It's,
And I'm not shy to tell the world about it, whether they ask or not. That's why they put me in front of a microphone.
yeah. Yeah, but I've kind of been taken, like, I've just been doing cursory looking at the news, because uh, it's just gotten to where it's just, they're just grasping at every little thing. So every little thing is something. I mean,
Did you
so
see they're going to do fucking Russia again?
What do you mean they're going to do Russia again?
Schiff says he's got another whistleblower that says, "Oh, there's Russian malfeasance again."
Yeah, I saw something about a whistleblower there. Great. Here, you know what? I'm more interested in. I'm
What's
more
that?
interested in the Wuhan scientist that they got from her secret location on an interview, and she says, "I have concrete evidence that the coronavirus was created in the Wuhan lab."
Let me get that up because I actually just threw that in my articles worth investigating for Monday's Contemporary show because I, like 15 minutes ago, just found that article. I said, okay, we're going to read this
Well,
later.
it just hit today. So it's not like it's a brand new thing out there. Even so much so that a bunch of people haven't jumped on and started running with it. But this is not the first time the claim's been made.
Right.
But she is claiming that she has definitive proof that it was created in that laboratory. But she is currently in hiding because, of course, anybody that's a whistleblower over there with something like this, well, they call the Clinton suicide hotline
Mhm.
and take care of things.
Well, not to mention the fact, and um, I don't know if this is just standard practice over here or whatnot, or what if it's standard practice over there. Usually, whistleblowers are highly protected, but I'm looking over the New York Post, and oh, hey, there's her full name, and hey, just in case you were confused about who she was, there's her fucking picture.
Yeah, but she's in a hidden. It does say that she joined them via webcam from a hidden location. Now, being that she might be in China, I don't know how hidden you can be on a webcam sending out on the interpipes. I mean, coming from China, they they've kind of got a lock on that shit. So I don't know that she's necessarily safe. So it may not have been the best idea to just like publicize her information.
Yeah.
We're not real nice about that. Fuck them, right? Fuck them. They want to be a whistleblower. Let's make sure that they're seen and heard.
And then to think about all the live streams that got taken down if somebody said Erica Marshmallow.
Right? I see Elephant Man is lurking in the chat. No, John is not. Well, he is too busy because
He's got a good reason.
he's got an emergency situation that he's dealing with. Nothing that nothing life threatening or anything like that, but it is a personal situation that he needs to deal with. So gosh, get off his back. Actually, he's shaving his beard. So he took he needs a couple of days for that, and that's what this is really about. But anyway, so I don't know. I keep looking at these things like for that we're talking about in the news here, and I think like legitimate things are getting washed away because of all of the tainted journalism that's going on. Like the Woodward book that's out, right? Rage. And I'm like, okay, so the president said things in his interviews with this guy, knowing he was on the record. Yeah, if I were the president, there's a good chance that when it came to certain things about the coronavirus, I would have played it down, right? You got to as a president, right? That's really kind of a thing
Yeah.
you've got to do. You don't want to put people in a panic. Thanks for dropping by, RC. Have fun and good luck with the show. Do your thing. Do your thing. Um, but you know, so legitimate news like the wildfires that are going on. There's some
Hmm.
serious shit going on there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people are probably just sitting around going, "Well, the media has pretty much clued me into fuck them. That's what they get over there on the West Coast for all the bullshit they've been doing." Right? So it's like, but like, quite a few people have died. I think they posted a number today of like 3,900 structures have been destroyed in California. I think it was in California alone, or was that in Oregon? It might have been Oregon.
Yeah, because that's heading up the spine of the nation too.
Um, Elephant Man says he went down on an elephant woman. It's going to take a couple of days. All right, nice. But or this, this scientist, that to me, that's like, okay, all right, if you tell me that was created there, no, I don't think they threw it out there as a biological weapon. I just think, okay, accidents happen. It's a fear that you always have that these things will happen when you're working with these kind of things.
Oh yeah.
But it the question I would have for you is, doesn't something like this demand a global response in some way? Not fully negative, maybe, but doesn't it?
What do you
China.
have in mind?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying like, okay, we go to war with China because they accidentally let a virus out of one of their labs, because any country could have done the same fucking thing, and I'm sure they have in the past. I'd be willing to say there's a lot of viruses that have made a run for the border, as it were, probably came from somewhere cooking, right?
Yeah, but there are a lot of refugees that have made a run for the border too, and they just get shot down.
Right. But no, I don't. I like I said, it does this require some sort of slap on the wrist from the global community, or do we take it in stride as a oops? We know willingly know that this can happen when we do these. Our countries do these things.
Well, I got to ask you the question about this then is what exactly do you do to the country that can throw the ultimate Zerg rush at the world?
Well, when it's if
They'll starve your supply lines and then they'll just keep throwing disposable troops over and over again. Yeah, they're weak, but they've got an army. They've got billions of them to keep
right.
throwing at you and throwing at you.
Well, that's
Oh,
why
we don't give a fuck about our own people anyway.
Well, it's like Elephant Man says, he says we should take it in stride, and I'm kind of the same mind. That's where I'm on the fence. I'm like, I have to look at these options. I mean, it doesn't require some sort of a global sanctions. You know, or do we need to understand the intent of why? Was it just something they were experimenting with, so that they could find a cure because of the possibility that this could develop in nature? There's a lot of things. So, that keeps, leaning me towards, we've got to take it in stride as just an oops kind of thing, because it doesn't make sense that they would release it on their own people first like that. Or would
Well,
it?
maybe to quell some sort of dissent. But here's something else you got to keep in mind with this thing too. I mean, if this was bioengineered to be some sort of bioweapon, then in all honesty, in every metric that I can look at with this, and I know that the media is going to try and stoke you with fear porn that says 190,000 people died or 210,000 people, 250. Oh my God, Trump's got all this blood on his hand. In all honesty, if this is actually a bioweapon or a plague that was supposed to go out and wipe out the economy of the world, it's about as high a quality as all the fucking shit that they put on the shelf at Walmart.
Okay,
Chinese crap that didn't do as well as you'd hoped it would be for the money that you paid for it.
sure. But there's no way we could prove that it was developed as a bioweapon, right? There's 1,000 excuses that they could give
Mm-hmm.
for why it was there, why it had been created. Um, Elephant Man says, "How about they relinquish their claim on any debt they owe, that they own?" I could see that. Something to that extent. There's some
Yeah, but what
sanctions
would
there,
that
but
do to
that
the
would
market?
it would collapse their economy. I know
It
you
would
couldn't get rid of
collapse
all of
ours
it.
just in a fucking hurry,
It
too.
would probably hurt ours. Is right. Good to see you tonight, Michael Vega. Didn't see you roll in on your half track. Came in quiet this evening.
No,
Um,
that's Seawall, not Vega.
or what? Seawall. Oh, that's right. Seawall. Wait. Oh God. I'm smoking too much crack tonight.
Well, you are in Florida.
They all ride in those things together. Just so you'll know, they all ride in them together. Last time Wyatt was here, he jumped up in there with Seawall. I think I've seen Vega do the same thing.
Oh, Seawall was on my game string last night handing out roles. Who wants to be a gunner? Who wants to be the mechanic? Who wants to be this? He recruited Ron. He recruited, who the hell else did he? Oh, my friend Icenfire stopped in for a while, too.
Like joined you in the game?
No, he joined in the chat.
Oh, gotcha.
Unfortunately, New Vegas is a one-player game. Otherwise, I'd have him in. Absolutely.
Um, so when it's all said and done, I I saw you pointed something else out that I think is going to get washed away.
There's a lot
And
of shit that's going to get washed away because it's not convenient for anybody.
right. And this was about the census. And this is a little surprising to me. Because last year Donald Trump wanted to put a question on this. The administration wanted to put a question on the census, basically asking if you were a citizen or not.
Mm-hmm.
And the Supreme Court said no. Right? They're the ones that said no, you can't do that.
Right. That
So
is correct.
so now they're also saying no, the Census Bureau cannot tally a separate count of illegal immigrants. They just they have to tally them all together in deciding the number of the population density for representative choice or
Well,
for
the
the
first thing you got
electoral
to ask there,
votes.
and you've actually got to come out and be completely objective with this. First, I was pissed about this when I read about this morning, and I read this on Contemporary this morning, and I was pissed. But the first thing you've really got to ask is how would they know? The question didn't make it onto the fucking census.
Well,
What metric do they use to try and say who could be counted and who can't?
okay,
They have no metric.
well then the argument is then basically you're that is allowing an unknown number of illegal immigrants to be counted as part of the census. Because these people will be receiving mail. They'll get the census people coming and knocking at their door. And if they're
Mm-hmm.
not asking them any kind of citizenship question, then you have an unknown amount, upwards to 14 million illegal immigrants that can be counted as constituents in local and state municipalities.
Oh yeah.
And that, to me, is super fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a hard nose on if you must be a citizen,
Mm-hmm.
period, to vote. I don't even think that the full extended version of the Bill of Rights should apply to non-citizen residents. There should be a secondary Bill of Rights for non-citizen residents.
Ooh, that's going into some dangerous territory right there because that makes the decision of, okay, who grants you your rights, the government or your creator?
Whoa, 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 whoa. We are country first. It's tough
Mm-hmm.
shit, folks. That's the problem here. It doesn't. We're not the human fucking council for the world.
Mm-hmm.
Your human rights, these will be constitutional rights for non-citizen pathway immigrants. And understand by pathway, I mean people that are following the path to citizenship. They will have a limited scope of rights. Sure, they'll have free speech, but they won't have the freedom to not be monitored in that speech. So they won't have the same rights to privacy that we're supposedly afforded. And that's okay, because in this day and age, it has been shown, of all days, today is one day that can show you what infiltration through that path to citizenship or along the lines of quote unquote immigration can succeed in doing. I'm not going to get into a back and forth about what actually happened in 2001 on this day. But what I am going to say is that we were infiltrated, and
Mm-hmm.
it was through our loose immigration and work policies that people were able to do what they did and to gain the access that they did. And that I have a problem with. We've got to shore up what we're doing with immigration. And one of the things that goes a long way to doing that is to not give illegal immigrants in this country the same rights as a full-blown citizen has. You must, there's nothing wrong with limited rights. What's wrong with that?
Now, see, I think you're confusing two different concepts about this as well. and especially when you're going down the Bill of Rights. Now, under the Bill of Rights, you've got the freedom to speak freely, including if that goes against a government official, assemble peacefully, defend yourself, and pursue happiness. You don't get guaranteed the happiness, but you have the right to go out and say, hey, this is what I want to do. And if it's, no matter how tremendously stupid it is, I get to try it. And if I fuck up, I have to accept the consequences. Those are the only rights that are in the Bill of Rights.
Well, you've got to take into account, what about the right to bear arms?
I said defend yourself.
Oh, defend yourself. Okay.
Mhm.
So now I don't, as far as, I look at the Second Amendment, and I don't know that I believe that if you're not a citizen of this country, some of these rights need to fall under the realm of privileges, like they do if you commit a felony.
Mhm.
When you commit a felony in this country, certain rights become privileges and are taken away from you.
Well, in complete and honest fairness, when you're looking at the right to keep and bear arms and whether or not you've committed a felony, crossing the federal border illegally and residing in the country illegally is a felony.
Right. Oh, wait. Okay. So you're talking about who committing the felony right now?
Mhm.
No, I'm asking you, who are you speaking of?
An illegal immigrant is committing a felony.
If they buy a gun.
No, if they're here, they're committing a felony.
Oh, okay. I understand what you're saying. Well, if they're on the path to, and notice that, as far as illegal immigrants that are not on the path,
Mhm.
those we need to process either out or process them faster onto the path
Mhm.
if they have a legitimate reason to be here getting on the path. We've got to sort that out. But if you're on the path to citizenship, I don't necessarily agree, because of the threat. We're talking about globalized threats now on an individual basis. One person is a threat in and of
Mhm.
themselves until they've been vetted. So I don't have a problem with them having free speech and freedom of press and the right to protest. But I do have a problem with them owning a gun if they haven't proven their loyalty to this country by following the path to citizenship.
See, I do like where you're going with that, and I respect where you're going with that. You're a wonderful man, and you understand some of the great things that go on about this country. The problem that I have with that goes along with the same thing I've been saying about all the other rights as we go along. Now, yes, I understand stripping some of these rights from people who've committed a felony, but the government that is big enough to grant you rights is big enough to take them away.
Mhm.
That's where I say it's just you're treading into dangerous territory. I don't necessarily think that you're wrong, but it leads to dangerous precedents that I don't really want to see our federal government explore.
Right.
Because they suck at everything.
And when it's all said and done, the impetus there is that I believe the Constitution needs, that is the major fix for the Constitution, is if we refer to citizens throughout the Constitution as opposed to anything to do with men or humans or anything. Citizens, right? As humans we're granted rights, as citizens the Constitution protects these rights. And then from there, we can go into reforming our immigration policy and our pathway so that we account for and create a limited Bill of Rights that protects their human rights, but also acts as a stopgap to allow us to test. I'm sorry, we have to test individuals coming into this country anymore. We've reached that point. It's the inevitability. It's not that I love it. I don't want big overarching state. I don't, but I understand where we're at this point. And, I don't want to see something like 9/11 happen again, although I'm thoroughly expecting something to that extent happening sometime in the near future, only because we are making ourselves weak and vulnerable right now.
So what happens if it comes from the inside? How do you
Oh,
defend against that?
well, I mean, and therein lies the rub is, I thoroughly expect it will come from the inside, but where did that inside come from, right? Like, how long has that whoever it is, been a part of the inside? Were they originally from the inside? It gets into all this gray area, but I expect it will come from the inside for the most part. That's really where I lean.
Well, and I got to challenge you on this thought too, because I mean, the biggest threat that we have right now is not coming from radicalized Muslims, coming from the Middle East. They've got their own problems right now, especially since Israel
Sure.
and the UAE have signed a peace pact. You haven't heard about it in the news, but Iran, the mullahs are shaking in their fucking boots right now over that one. The biggest threat that we have in this country right now is some scrawny little fuckstick in Portland who managed to evade the police long enough that he can take his little handkerchief, black handkerchief, off his chin and take the aviators off him and take the hood down and go and get on a plane. And now he's radicalized by the situation that's up in Portland. And they're chanting death to America just as bad as the mullahs were.
Right.
And they're citizens. I mean, that little bastard that I just described there was probably born
Ed, you froze.
there.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, here's the thing. Now, this is probably the cynic in me. While I agree with you about
Mhm.
what's happening here and what's happening to the individual American here, I do not believe that radical groups around the world have eased their recruitment. Yes,
Oh
government,
no, they haven't. Absolutely not. They're
right.
just dealing with other shit right now.
But see, this is the perfect time for them to capitalize on that. See, and that's the thing is like, when if something pops off here in America, you know, while it may come from the inside, we don't, it's going to be a catch 22 as to figure, or, real conundrum to try and figure out who radicalized this individual.
Hmm.
Because now there's players in the game. We've seen it with the Black Lives Matter movement, right?
Yeah,
There's players in the game that are making pawns of people, and that's just within the country. Or that we assume is within the country. We don't even know how much of this, if I were a terrorist group, I would be trying to radicalize groups like BLM, you know,
I don't think they need help.
and to pretend, there's all sorts of things you could pretend to be and catfish them along and just.
Dude, they don't need help right now. Did you see the stupid shit that happened this morning over in DC?
No, I did
I don't know
not.
if you were planning on talking about the Senate stimulus bill
Uh,
at all, but just a
that
spoiler
thing.
alert if you were. After the Senate Democrats blocked the skinny stimulus bill, Black Lives Matter went up to Mitch McConnell's house and started chanting, "No $600, no peace," outside McConnell's house.
Yeah,
We watched the video on Contemporary this morning.
now see, there's that, and it's it's the gimmies, right? I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of people are upset right now because there's, I mean, so if you look at August and you look at September, right? They took two breaks, one in August, one in September, and right up until each break, what was going on with the media? Here's where the next stimulus check stands. When could you expect it? What could you expect? Well, it depends on if they can do anything before the August break. And then it went on to, well, here's what you can expect, and here's what the talk is, and this is how much it could be, and this is how much it might be. And well, all
Oh,
of
that's a
this
lot cleaner
hinges,
than the answer that I had for that question. When you
and
asked me what was going on in the media, I was about to say gigantic circle jerk and ass pat.
right. So they're all, but the American people, there's American people sitting out there, and my stepdaughter was an excellent example. She was talking about this, that, and the other with bills and this, that, and the other. And she said, "Well, there's another stimulus check coming, right?" And I'm like, "Oh no, you should no, you shouldn't even be considering that. That's not. That's gone. That's nothing. I mean, that's been they hyped that up, and now it's gone. So that's going to piss a lot of Americans off.
Yeah, it is.
No matter where you're at, there's going to be people on both sides of the fence sitting at home not working, pissed off.
Yeah.
So I mean, but it's not surprising what they've been doing with. you know, with all of it.
Well,
But
yeah, and I mean, we heard it all. We heard it all surrounding the first one. I mean, what did we hear? What were some of the suggestions that we heard of people doing shit? I mean, I told you what I did with mine, and I showed you the picture.
yeah.
But I mean, what Sewell? I think with that comes here. I'm going to get myself a piece of property or something chambered in 45. You're an idiot. Well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to pay this bill up. No, well, that's at least a little bit more responsible, but that's probably not the smartest thing to do either. Everybody should have taken that check that was working. Now, of course, and I will come out and say, if you were starving to death, yes, absolutely take that check. If you didn't know where your next meal was coming from, take that check. But and I know the government put it out there to be, oh, well, we just want to stimulate the economy. Well, I've already looked through the tax code that's been amended because of this check, and a lot of people are going to be awfully pissed off come April, January of next year.
Well, that's much like the with the payroll tax holiday.
Oh, fuck that. I have been saying that right from the beginning. As soon as I first heard the words payroll tax holiday, I said, you are going to be fucking sorry.
Right.
You're going to be sorry. I can tell you that right off the bat. You're going to be fucking sorry.
Now, I am curious as to how much string they're going to tie to the earlier stimulus package. I know they've already
All
been,
of it.
I know they've been tying some, but it's like, okay, because it was pitched to America that this was not going to be a burden on us later, right? It was,
So, according to the tax code, which my tax accountant and I went through this, because she tried to convince me to call the IRS and get another check. And I told her, fuck no, nothing comes out of the government without a hook in it. But we sat down and we looked at it. We actually looked up where it says in the tax code what they're going to do with this. This is a loan against your tax return. Now, they are not going to take your tax return negative. But these people that get $3,000, $5,000, $7,000 back at the end of the year are going to see that be $1,200 lighter. Or people that get like $500 are not going to get anything.
So they have actually amended the tax code that you're going to pay it back if you were getting a return.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucked up.
Well, then they're hiding it against the return. Like I say, they're not going to take it negative is the thing. So most people aren't even going to notice it. They're just going to be. They're going to say, "Oh, well, Trump raised my taxes because I didn't get as much back as I thought that I was going to out of my tax return," because that's how it fucking works. I didn't get as big of a check back from the government. My taxes must have gone up.
That's going to piss a lot of people off, though. There's a lot of people that count on that tax return every year. Unfortunately, they've not had a choice. There's a lot of
stupid people in this country too.
Well, but I know you call them stupid, Ed, but you can't say they're stupid if you haven't walked a mile in their shoes.
I've been a mile in their shoes. I've depended on that before.
You're talking about people who have been taught and trained through a personally declining economy, that they don't have enough money to save up, and that they've got there's going to be a chunk of money every year that you get back from paying in taxes that you'll be able to get back, and they count on that as part of kind of as part of their income. It's just because of these habits and these, the conditioning that we've all had. It's not that people are stupid.
I had that conversation with somebody once, and she said right out, well, a lot of people depend on that money every year because up here, Scott Walker, when he was still governor, was trying to repeal income tax altogether in Wisconsin and try and get it through other means. And yeah, one of my friends went on Facebook when I still used Facebook and said, "Oh, well, so look at all the people that depend on this money at the end of every year." I said, "Yeah, but you're not going to be paying it in. Wouldn't it be nice to get your whole fucking paycheck?"
But see that is hard for people to grasp after decades and decades of being trained to do it a certain way. I mean, anything else that you propose is really, you can say, oh, there's going to be changes to the tax code, and people are like, oh, okay. And then they know when they go to file their taxes online that the tax software will have all that figured in, or their accountant will be able to handle all of that, right? But there's just the process. You work all year, Get your tax shit together at the end of the year, file your taxes. Either you owe money or you get money back. Most people don't play that, run the fine line with their, smart. There are some smart people that do, that realize that if I just set the deductions just right, I'll break even every year. But
Yeah, I mean, like me, I don't mind. I actually pay in for the most part every year. I cannot get my deductions to a point where I can pay into Wisconsin. I've tried. But I pay in. I either get like $10 or have to pay in like $10 every year for the federal government. And I get chewed out from my tax accountant every year. Well, you're not going to get a refund. Yeah, but the government didn't get an interest-free loan for me either.
Well, you introduce a new tax code into the country, and you watch, it'll take 10 plus years for the citizenry to get used to it, to adopt it, to acclimate to it. Even though it's they can see the immediate results of having more money in their pocket, like if it was a fair tax thing, where they're only taxed on their consumption. Well, they're not, they can see the proof in the pudding, but it's going to take a long time for it to sink in because, again, you're countering decades of training,
Mm-hmm.
ingraining into your society how this
Mm-hmm.
works.
Plus all the economy that runs around it. I don't know what it's like down for you guys because I've only been there for a week, but I know up here around probably February, every single car dealership has a sudden bank on hand that they can cash your tax return and you
Sure.
can put a down payment on that brand new Chevrolet that you had your eye on.
Well, yeah, it's become easy to do that, and it's their own personal bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're
Yeah.
just, but it's and I know how car dealerships do. I mean, it's just a fancy way for them to get your tax return in their hands. I mean, I know how it works. But yeah, I mean, it's that's the way we're set to move forward, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to do an overhaul of the tax system. You're going to have to
I
put
don't,
something
well,
new in
you
place.
will, you are correct. You're going to have to do that. But I don't think, now, I don't want to 4D chess the president as any more than I have to because he does a lot of stupid shit. He really does. But sometimes I have to wonder if some of the things that he does are deliberate, and some of them are him stumbling over his own feet, coming up with a pet project, and then it just turning out right for him. So I have been consuming the content of Matt Christensen for longer than you have
Right.
at this point. I remember, I think it was tax season 2018 because I was still living with the monster at the time. And I remember when he filed the tax, because he doesn't do a job where they take anything out.
Right.
What he does on YouTube, that's what he does. That's what he does for a living. So he doesn't have anything taken out of a paycheck and put into a trust account to make sure that his taxes are paid. He has to write the check at the end of every year.
Right.
And I actually remember that it was in 2018, right after he wrote the check. He did it on a Sunday, and they got on the Sunday show and expressed to the audience and to Blonde that he had just had his own personal Me Too movement from the IRS after what he paid in taxes. And he pointed something out, and this has stuck with me ever since he said this. I have cited this on numerous other programs. I've cited this on my own program numerous times. So if everybody in the country had to write the check at the end of the year instead of having the money go into a trust at the end of every year, they would realize how much they are actually paying in taxes, and you would start seeing the tax code change really, really, really fucking quick. That's a big part of what's going on right now is nobody knows what they're paying in taxes. I know because I actually look at my gross versus my take home every month or every week rather.
I'll be honest with you. I think you just see a lot fewer people paying their fucking taxes.
Hey, what's wrong with that?
I mean, the IRS would go back into a realm of policing. You'd see those G-men on the street again from the IRS.
Well, and I mean, that's just it. If you look at this and the fact of what they would have to do, they can't arrest everybody that would have a problem paying their taxes. They're going to run out of space at some point here. Plus, like I say, it's the ignorance that is driving the tax system right now. I mean, HW in all his ancient fucking wrinkled balls glory, I'm gonna go after Saddam. You know who my favorite magician was? David Copperfield. Well, he can stand up on the stage and say, "Read my lips, no new taxes," and then fucking lie about it and jack your fucking taxes up. And the
Well,
only reason anybody found out about it is because the media hated the fucking Bushes for good reason. But
well, if you make the mistake of believing politicians, well, you get what you pay for, sir.
well, I'm going to lead a revolution, and you can believe me. I will make sure that everything that you need is paid for, and you will not have to worry about anything else anymore.
And you know what? Now, there was somebody who might have been honest enough in what he was saying that he got shut the fuck down 2 elections running. They're like, this motherfucker might try and make good on these promises.
Well, you know
No.
what? I don't have to actually try and make a plan, because now I have run for president. I can sell another book, and I can buy another house. I will have 5 houses then, and I can eat tapioca in 5 different places.
I like it. You really got to take that on the road. That's good. Can you do that for like a good 30-minute bit?
It would get exhausting, but I bet you I could.
Yeah. So you brought up Trump's 4D chess, and
And that's where I was going with that when I was talking about what we got off track when we were talking about people having to pay the taxes. So if you cut the payroll tax and it's not going into the trust anymore, a lot of people in this country are going to find out exactly what they're paying in taxes. You notice, does your tax preparer, well, you're self-employed, so you're in a different story, but I hate to bring your wife into this, but I got to ask the question: does the tax preparer tell her what she paid in taxes?
Oh, yeah, I do our taxes.
Okay.
So, but
So,
yeah,
okay,
she
that's a
knows
different story.
she knows what she pays in,
For the
and
most part, your tax preparer does not tell you what your outgoing is. And my tax preparer and I have enough of a relationship that I make her tell me.
well,
That's the reason I don't go get this. That's the reason I drive an hour and a half to get my taxes done, because I have that kind of a relationship with my tax preparer.
now I will say this: my wife is smart enough that she's one of those that gets her money in her paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And then because she always owes, she hasn't found that sweet middle ground yet, but she always owes a little bit at the end of the year because
Mm-hmm.
she didn't pay in quite enough.
Mm-hmm.
And which, of course, since we filed together, that gets offset, blah, 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 one way or the other by my taxes being built into it.
Mm-hmm.
But, uh, it's, the thing that you have to remember is like when they're taking that chunk of money out of your check, what the biggest portion of it's going to, which means, which is the secondary thing that's got to happen when you talk about stopping payroll taxes, is you've got to get rid of or fix the Social Security system, because a large chunk of that money goes into the Social Security funding. I know, roll your eyes all you want, but that must also go hand in hand because, for instance, that's what they're doing on this payroll tax holiday. They're targeting the
Mm-hmm.
money you're paying into Social Security. They're going to let that take a 4-month hit and then get that money back at the beginning of the year. But the 1 point something percent that you're paying in as income tax, they're still taking that. They're just they're not making you pay the 6.2% in Social Security tax that you pay. So that is what actually has to happen if you want to change the tax. You've got to find some way to fund Social Security without taking it out of people's paychecks or
Well,
get
the
rid
first
of it.
thing we need to do is stop the Senate from using it as a fucking piggy bank.
Well, I mean, pick something that has funding that they don't use as a piggy bank. They
Pick something that'll actually happen in this fucking lifetime.
Right. They reapportion funds from everything. So, one of their greatest loves was the war on drugs and all the money that they were being apportioned for the war on drugs. They could just throw that shit all over the place. Oh, we can take a little bit and throw it here and take some throw it. It's the war on drugs. Nobody knows how much it costs.
Mm-hmm.
you know?
You know what the worst part about the Social Security fund is? it is evident, and everybody on both sides know exactly how mismanaged Social Security is. And Kirsten Gillibrand and Alexandria Ocasio fucking Cortez want to expand the post office to personal banking, knowing full well how mismanaged the Social Security fund is.
Now, let me ask you this. When it comes to Social Security, because it has become a standard part of income for Americans over the decades that it's been in place, right? You have a large sector of older people in this country that rely on it, right?
Yeah, that's
So,
3/4 of the problem right there.
so to actually, well, what are you going to do? Kill off old people?
Well, no, but we've got the generation that preceded you that, just like my generation, doesn't know how to save a dime and expects the government to come in and pay for them.
Well, I mean, if saving money was potential for the government, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. They've never been able to save money. They've never been able to budget money properly, or, and most importantly, spend money properly. So this is an inevitability. I mean, it's everything in the government is mismanaged from a financial standpoint in the long run, one way or the other. And Social
Mhm.
Security is just another victim of that. But it is a staple that's in place. I mean, it's a very, very heavily counted on system that's in place. So if I were to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a specific age. Let's say everyone who's 55 and older will be able to continue to take part of the Social Security system.
Mhm.
Anyone before that isn't 55 will not have to. Now, for those people that are not going to be able to take part in Social Security, we're going to stop taking as much Social Security money. And for a period of time, say another 5 years, we're going to continue to take a smaller percentage of money from you, but the standard percentage from people 55 and older who are still working, and fund the system out until those people that are 55 are on the receiving Social Security and tapping the last of the money from Social Security, but nobody else is going on it, and everyone else will have stopped paying into it, and we can alleviate the system that way. Now, it would probably take 20 to 25 years overall to sort it all out and get rid of it. But is that a feasible avenue for getting rid of Social Security?
I don't know. I just know it's not going to be there when I get to be
Well,
63.
and there it is. There's the perfect argument for it. You're not expecting it to be there, so let's go ahead and take it out of the picture for you,
Mhm.
and it gives you enough time to build a nest egg.
Well, one of the other things that's been floated a few times is to privatize it. And do keep in mind the fact that, I mean, Social Security is just sitting there on no interest. The government is borrowing out of it interest free,
Right.
essentially, to go and build their pet projects.
Sure.
If you put this up into a private bank at some point and could tie it to the market, first off, that would be incentive for everybody to make sure the market kept going and chugging along. But tie it up into the stock market or into a bank where it can get loaned out and actually make some money back.
Yeah, see, the only problem is two problems I have with that. A, when you
Mhm.
talk about tying it to Wyatt just showed up in the house. Oh, and I see Nephilim Ninja was in here a little
Yep.
bit ago. But A, tying it to the stock market makes it too volatile, especially
That's fair.
especially in a day and age where all it takes is one tweet to
Mhm.
destroy the stock value of a company,
Mhm.
right?
That
But
is fair. I'll give you that.
and then the other issue, um, with that is that oh my God, it just ran out of my head
Mm.
because it had to do with what you said. But I mean, there is another issue that falls into that as far as as far as private corruption.
Yeah.
Privatizing it, I think, would open it up to equal, if at least an equal level of corruption that you see from the federal government. Of course, the federal government gets to do that corruption in the wide open because they can play with the money as they want.
Mhm.
But from a private institution, that same level of corruption is equally possible, and and would be more corrupt because they wouldn't have the open door to do the things that they do with it. Now, it would be nice if the government was forced to pay interest on loans taken against Social Security to a bank,
Yeah.
with it in a private bank. But
Hmm.
privatizing it, that's that other open door, right? We've got to find a middle ground to where nobody, I don't know, some self accountability with that
Well,
money.
and that is the biggest problem, is the fact that the Social Security fund is essentially sitting there and stagnating right now. And there's so many other things that you could do with that. I wrote an article back when I was still writing blogs talking about what I would do if I won the lottery. Because most of the people who win the lottery are going to go and blow it on stupid shit. They're going to go out and they're going to spend it and spend it, and they'll buy a van, and they'll buy a little house somewhere, and they'll roll the van, and they'll be out that money. And I mean, people that win the lottery are broke within 3 years. I think it is statistically. They're flat ass broke within 3 years. Whereas, I mean, if I got my hands on, usually when I was still playing the lottery, it had to hit $100 million before I would even touch a ticket. Which, okay, you hit the ticket, you get, I think it's $67 million out of everything once the taxes and everything get through. But I mean, think of what I could do with $67 million. Put $11 million in the bank, live off the interest. That's your personal expenses taken care of right there from the interest off of that.
Sure.
And you take that money, buy 10 semis and 10 trailers, put 10 drivers up in there, get a dispatcher. And all that turns into money coming back into your pocket. I could take $67 million and turn it into $1 billion pretty fucking easily.
Sure. I
And
mean,
you don't just sit there and let your money stagnate. You buy it. You buy an asset like a car that's something that's for personal use. It's just going to devalue. You buy a truck. Yes, it's going to devalue, but it's going to bring you back money back in. I'm talking like a semi truck, not like the pickup that's sitting outside.
no, see, the thing for me is, since I know it'll never happen, I can reveal my deep, dark plan. But
Hmm.
for me, I just cash out as much as I can get immediately. I know,
Hmm.
it's less money, and I take that money and I
Hmm.
secretly buy myself a nice little plot of land, and I dig a big fucking hole, and drop that box of fucking money in that hole.
Hmm.
Because the simple fact of the matter is, it's a crapshoot as to whether or not I can spend that money before it's useless. Because
That's why
it's
I tie it into things that make me money,
the cash
because those
cash is
semis are going to always be useful at some point. The
right,
cash won't be.
right.
The assets are,
See,
especially
I
ones that can do something commercially.
I used to have a lot of faith in investing money.
Hmm.
That used to always be my thing, saying the same thing. Invest a chunk of money, a chunk of the winnings into something that's going to pay for, that funds your living expenses for the rest of your life. And then you have money that you can play with. But I don't trust that anymore. I don't trust the investments. Like, just look at the stock market this year alone.
Hmm.
That the way the roller coaster it's been on. One prince to pauper, pauper to prince, constantly throughout this for a lot of people. And it's like I don't I don't want anything being tied to the market anymore. I just one too many screws, because the last housing bubble, Wall Street kind of gave it to me up the ass on that one. I'm just saying. So they burned me once then,
Yeah.
and you know, but I don't know. It's the kind of thing where it's we look at these changes we want to make, and there's so many adjacent things that we've got to concentrate on getting rid of, before we
Hmm.
can we can ever success to get rid of taxes, to change the tax system. We've got to do something about everything else, everything that's tied to it. um, Even though, what the biggest detriment to the Social Security program is, to be honest with you.
The fact that it's tied to the federal government.
Well, no, but realistically, it's income inequality. People aren't making enough money to pay into the system to support the people that are using the system. There's not enough money coming in. It's not going to be solvent for much longer. It barely
Mhm.
is now. But there's not enough money coming in. And that is directly tied to the income inequality when we talk about wages and things like this. Not saying that, I'm not promoting we need to jack up the minimum wage and kill small business owners and blah blah blah. What I'm saying is inflation is out of fucking hand. I don't care what
Yeah.
anybody fucking says. This is not a conversation that's being had, and it surprises me. I mean,
Well, and they're open about it too. When we ran through the first round of stimuluses, Rashida Tlaib, the endeared and astute scholar from Michigan, who is sitting in the House of Representatives, said, "Oh, all we have to do is just mint $2 trillion coins, and then we can put it on a debit card and keep putting $1,000 on people every month." What do you think that's going to do to the value of our cash? You fucking cow.
well, now bear in mind this, because I'm going to go ahead and make this prediction now.
Mm-hmm.
One of the three big proponents of uh, a UBI since the pandemic hit, right? One of the three big proponents of that is now on the Democratic presidential ticket. Because Kamala Harris was one of three people behind, along with Bernie and somebody else, behind the idea of doing a $2,000 a month UBI in regards to the COVID. But watch that a UBI becomes a point of conversation, if not before the election, definitely at some point after Biden wins the election. This is going to be a conversation if Democrats win the election, because
Give
Kamala
me free
Harris,
stuff.
yeah, and trust me, this is people were like, oh, that was Andrew Yang's problem talking about the UBI. Well, ironically, we reach a point in 2020 where people are like, oh, that UBI thing would have been a good idea, right? I mean, I get it, the gimmies kind of mindset, but still, I'm out of work. A $1,000 check for me and my wife right now would be pretty tasty, right? Conversations being had again, and one of those people is on the Democratic national ticket. So bear that in mind when we start talking about money. This is some of the stuff that I was telling John is starting to scare me about this election. And it's not the response from the American public. Oh, I'm not, it's not the big boog fear. It's the simple fear that I cannot, I cannot be comfortable with Joe Biden taking the role of president primarily because of who his running mate is.
Um, I can't be confident in Joe Biden taking the role of the president because, the thing.
There's a dozen things, right? There really are. There's a lot of things going against him as far as being president, whether it be nepotism, corruption, corrupt nepotism, whether it be the smelling the kids. I don't know. The his approach to African American vote, which I think is just thoroughly old white man racist. And that's just how he comes off every time he talks about the black vote. Um, but speaking of smelling kids, I did want to touch on this because you brought it to my attention, and it had
I
passed me
can't believe
by.
you haven't heard about it.
I don't. You know what? I hadn't even seen it come up on Netflix, but I don't look at foreign movies on Netflix, which I'm assuming it would have fallen into that genre.
What I
Um,
mean, how did I announce it to you when because this is why I assumed that you had heard about it.
right, or we could just
Let me quote myself.
go down that rabbit hole every other anybody with a microphone and a camera.
We
That's,
can go straight down the cuties route because absolutely every other human being with a webcam and a microphone hasn't beat that fucker to death already. Was
no,
the exact description I gave to you about why we could talk about
you
this.
know what? I'm in Florida. You know what cuties are? Those
Yes,
those little mandarin oranges, or is
hmm
it tangerines? One of the two.
they are oranges.
Um, that's what cuties are to me. So when you mentioned that, I'm like, what? There's an orange scandal? Hey, there's Seawall on a tiger. On a tiger? Fuck, coming in on a tiger. You bring the tiger in him out. Uh,
Oh yeah, he's had a lot to say about this, which once again is why I'm a little bit surprised you hadn't heard about it. Because I mean, Seawall's been
Well,
going off on this whole thing.
look.
Well, I know you don't go on the Twitter, but
I don't have a problem with because I read it. I read into it. I read what the movie was about. I see what
Mhm,
the backlash is about. I don't have an issue with the movie because it's it's a different culture. It's in
mhm,
France. The movie is not promoting the children's sexuality. It's exposing the hypersexuality of children that age, which is honestly something that I share just as much concern about, right?
mhm,
What I do have a problem with is what Netflix did. Because you've seen the image you've seen that, right?
mhm.
That they put up for it. And, and just in case, just on the outside chance, anybody out there hasn't seen this, I'm going to share it. Oh, hold on. I'm going to share it as soon as I remember where it is. I have to pull it up so it's a window ready to go.
Oh, you can't see your porn.
Oh, I don't care if you see my porn. Gosh. All the girls in my porn are at least old enough. And they appear willing. So, but anyway, I'm going to share this with you and as well with folks out there because I was kind of shocked that Netflix went this route in doing this. So the image that you see on the left is the original screen cap cover for this movie, which is called Cuties. And it's
Mhm,
about these girls, one girl in particular, who joins a dance group. And it's kind of, they do a lot of booty shaking, twerking, modern grown up girl dancing for preteen 11, 12-year-old girls to be doing. But it's not, we have these dance classes here in this country, right? It's not
mhm,
like this is unusual to be happening.
mhm,
But Netflix, in putting it up, decided they were going to show the picture on the right. Now, why they chose to do that? Well, I have a problem
yeah.
with that because, yeah, this is not how this movie should be represented. And I think it was an extremely poor taste to do that. Now, do do I think the movie needs to be pulled from Netflix? Um, the only problem I have with that is that if this movie, and I haven't seen it, but if this movie does go to links to expose, to bring awareness to the hypersexualization of our younger people, which in effect leaves them open door to predators, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
I'm of a mind, don't stifle the avenues that parents can see this. Yes, fucking smack Netflix in the upside the head for doing that with the image. Now, what's your opinion, Ed?
Well, and I've been shaping this since they first announced it because the controversy for this didn't start this week when it got released. The controversy for this whole thing started, I think it was over a month ago at this point. No, it wasn't. It was like 3 weeks ago that everybody started getting all kinds of hype for this movie because it was coming out and because they saw the poster off of this. And I read the description of the movie. So, according to the description of the movie, it's not supposed to be something out there in Fantasyland for every pedophile to come in and touch himself to watch these little kids dancing like this.
Right.
It wasn't meant to be that. This was supposed to be a commentary about the fact that,
Absolutely.
like you had said, that this is. Now, I'm coming to this from a place of ignorance. I haven't seen the movie. I don't speak French. I can read the subtitles, but usually, like when I sit down and watch a movie, I'm playing solitaire or something on my phone or doing some research for something else or whatnot. So a subtitle movie, for as much as I do for Freedom Scoop, doesn't work for me right now. So I haven't sat back and watched it, but I don't know. Yes, the conversation needs to be had about the hypersexualization of young girls because it is absolutely happening. You can't stand. I mean, there are predators out there that are using Xbox to go out
Yes.
and go after these little kids, both boys and girls. getting them to do things. Like, according to some of the sources that I've actually sat down and watched the movie, I mean, one girl took her dad's phone and gave the shot down inside of her pants and sent it out to somebody in the movie.
Right.
I mean, there is some horrible stuff, but if you're trying to bring attention to something, do you want your audience to walk away from the movie feeling comfortable?
Right. Now, I something I said earlier has, people, I feel people must bear this in mind.
Mm-hmm.
This is made in a movie was made in a culture that is much more open
Mm-hmm.
and much more exposed as a society to sexual nature. It's a much more open society. We still try and, on the surface, from the politics, from the authoritarian angle, we still try and throw out these puritanical views
Yeah.
of sexuality and shame and things like this, whereas in places in Europe, for instance, in England, there's one paper that has the third page girl, and she, it's a topless woman on the third page kind of thing, right? And this has been a standard of their. So we're talking about a completely different culture and mindset in what was this movie was made. So a culture that is not filtered in evoking the truth, as
Mm-hmm.
it were, whereas we try and pander to the truth, as it were.
Well, and one thing that I want to point out that has, I mean, I've seen the images and the videos that have been circulating around Netflix, and you can't show some of these videos on here because Wojcicki will take your video down just for putting them up there. That's how bad some of the stuff is.
Right.
But of course, according to, again, sources that I've talked to that have actually seen the movie, in the last scene, you can see Amy, the girl who was the center star of the show, going back and putting on a full sweater, button-up sweater, modestly, and going back to the family tradition because she realized how bad this life that she was going down made her
Right.
feel. Now, did you have to show girls almost naked humping the floor to get that point across? That's a conversation we can have. That is
Well,
absolutely a conversation that we can have.
Well, let me ask you something. Is this something, if that's something that's currently going on a day-to-day basis, like we have here, look at what our cheerleading teams do. How young do girls start in cheerleading? And look at the provocative dances they're learning at young ages out there
Yeah.
to cheerlead. Okay.
Yeah.
Seawall says in the chat, he says, Rob, multiple national multiple nationalities, I'm assuming, or nations, culturally tolerate honor killing. So does that make honor killing okay? No, it doesn't make honor killing okay or not okay. But what I will point out is that if you're sitting down and watching a movie that's showing a culture honor killing people, and it's a work of fiction, much like this was, but it's based in the reality of the present time, are you going to have that movie banned? I mean, that's like, we got to pull things like everything that shows killing. These crazy, look at violence. There are so many wrong things done violently in movies and television, but we don't pull that, right? But even from a sexual aspect, okay. So does that mean we need to pull the police song? We got to get that off of the charts. We got to stop selling the police song. Don't stand so close to me, because that's a song about a teacher and a student that has a crush on him that he winds up hooking up with his student. So do we need to pull that song out of our iPods now?
Well, that is a little bit different too, because you're not actually seeing the sex act take place in the song either. I mean, you are seeing these lewd acts take place in the movie. Like I said, we can have the conversation over whether or not the movie needed to go to the lengths that they did,
Right.
as far as the actresses go, especially given the fact that parents gave the green light to have their children who are not involved in maybe some of these many things go out and learn how to do these dance moves and do them on the stage. There are problems that I have with this. I do agree with the overall message of the movie, but to the extent that they had to put it out there to get it out there, I'm uncomfortable with. from the scenes that I've seen.
Well, I mean, that's where we have to talk about, okay, what about movies that show rape?
Hmm.
Should movies that show rape, even, rape of adults be pulled? Should shows that show assault on children or other people be pulled when you're talking about these domestic abuse situations? Do we pull movies that show that? Because it's showing gritty realism. And I would be curious to ask how many of these girls that acted in this movie already took part in dance classes of this nature.
That is another conversation we had. Now, showing the rape. Now, of course, the fictional rape would be something that happened between one participant who was forceful and another one that was unwilling, the fictional situation. But both adults involved in the situation would be consenting, as a movie showing that would be. And that does call into line the idea of the age of consent as well, because can these girls at 11 consent to be used in this movie like this? Or do you violate the non-aggression principle by forcing them into something with this, given the fact that they don't have the psychological ability, according to many, many different societies out there, to consent? Now, and I'm going to bring this up with Steve, because Stephen and I are going to talk about the California bill tomorrow. John was going to be with us, but I mean, he's got his personal emergency now that he can't participate with us. But Stephen, on one of his shows, brought up a very good point when he was talking about cuties as well. And this is kind of stuck as an earworm to me, because there are other shows out there that are promoting the sexualization of people who are underage. He brought up the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina over on Netflix, and a specific scene where she had to participate in an orgy in order to, I don't know, uh, get the brunt of her occult powers. I don't really know the premise of the show. I know that it's based on the old Archie comic, but they made it really dark like they did with Riverdale. But I mean, the 16-year-old girl participating in an orgy. Now, yes, that is wrong. The 16-year-old girl could obviously not extend permission and consent for that. But the actress that is consenting to take part in the scene is, I believe, 22 years old.
Right.
Perfectly able to consent. So yes, you're depicting the fictional action, but using a consenting adult. It's the same thing if you looked at like 90210, like Dawson's Creek, like Riverdale. All of them were talking gratuitously about sex between underage teenagers, 15, 16, 17 years old. But all the actors were in their 20s in every case.
Here the thing Sewell has pointed out that he thinks if it was animated, it wouldn't be so bad. He says if this movie was animated and used adult voice actors, it would be disturbing, but not crossing a line. But I'm sorry.
Think about Big Mouth.
I'm sorry. I have to say, when it's all said and done, all you're doing by animating it and keeping the kids young is you're just hitting a whole different pedo audience, the hentai fans, right? I mean that's the first place my mind goes to if you want to talk about who's going to love this movie. If you think it's pedophiles who are going to love this movie now, animated is going to be the hentai pedophiles that love it. But look, the bottom line is, if this movie is depicting reality, I understand that these kids are actors, but I've seen as much or worse throughout the years watching the progression of television and movies. What we allow when I was young, the idea of an 8-year-old or even younger than that being on the big screen and saying fuck would have blown my mind. A kid cursing on TV or the movies, absolutely not possible. Now all checks are off when it comes to what kids will say in movies and TVs, what they're given permission to say
or do.
I
just watched Neighbors 2 a couple of weeks ago. Have you ever seen either Neighbors or Neighbors 2?
I've seen Neighbors. I do believe maybe I did see Neighbors 2 as well.
Yeah, it's 4 years later from Neighbors, and now the daughter is 4 years old, and You know, in
right?
the first scene, she's walking around with a fucking vibrator.
Well, look at Meet the Fockers. What was the first word the baby learned?
I don't know. I've never seen that movie.
Asshole. That was the first word the baby learned in the movie.
Is he Chinese?
No, it was a little kid. It's how kids pronounce stuff.
China's asshole.
But he heard asshole was the first word. Elfman says words are not deeds. I agree, but a movie, a movie that is acted out from a script is not depicting deeds, except exposing you to the fact that these things are happening in that society, and they're happening in your society too. These little dance troupes, go watch the behind the scenes for some of these fucking little girl pageants that go on.
Yeah.
Watch Disney Channel, watch Nickelodeon, and all these shows that are targeted at young girls, preteen girls, and look at the clothes the girls are wearing. Go to your fucking mall and tell me that you won't find the same clothes with the word juicy on the ass made for a 5-year-old. Why does a 5-year-old need the word juicy on her ass? But they're making these clothes. Everything that you can find for an adult, you can find it for a kid too. So let's not pretend that these things aren't happening. And if for shock value, a parent has to go, Jesus Christ, they put that in a movie, for them to realize, wait, this might be happening at my child's dance class. This might be happening right down the street from me. This is where our children's hypersexuality is at. I have children, and I realize where it's at. I realized a long time ago when they were very, very young, much younger than they should have been, to have anything like this in their head. So I understand the aspect of, is it wrong to have these kids doing this for a movie? I can see your argument.
Yeah.
But I will
that's definitely a conversation we can have.
But I will always make the argument, if it is just depicting real life from an because it appears to me her intent was for educational purposes in the greater sense, an expose, as it were. I don't know. I'm like, okay, if that's what it takes for some parents to wake up and realize that this is what's happening, where your kids are at, well, so be it. There's your wake-up call. Now, I'm not good with somewhat Netflix selling it from a sexualized nature to try and sell the movie. I get that. I'm not arguing that that's right in any way, shape, or fucking form. But to stifle the movie because of predilections of what the outcome, you've got a list of movies made by American studios that you need to get off the fucking shelves, because we've made the same shit in different ways and shapes. Go back and look at, like, I don't know, Drew Barrymore, some of her younger stuff. Look up, these kind of movies have been around for a while. I'm sorry, The Graduate. I mean, we were talking cougars before cougars were cool with The Graduate, right? And that's taboo stuff going on that we're making in films. You hear it in our music. You see it on our TV. This is not new. And to be appalled at it, you've got to be appalled at the greater picture, not just the one example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have long thought that movies like Saw, that entire franchise, did nothing but glorify torture and violence. There wasn't even, the story, come on. That storyline, just Hostel was another group of movies that I was just like, okay, here we go. Let's glorify some more torture and violence. But these kind of things are really happening out there in the world. But we don't say stop those. So I don't know. It's, how do you decide that, the moral implications of one movie that somebody else twisted, the intent? especially coming from another culture. I mean, you got to if you don't balance that in, you're selling yourself short.
Well, and once again, I honestly, I think the big gripe that goes along with this movie, we've touched on a lot of the social issues that were touched on in this movie that do need to be talked about. We need to look at what's happening with people when they give the 12-year-old cell phone. What's going to happen? Who's waiting out there for those girls to come into, or boys even for that matter, to come to a pubescent age where they're just starting to get curious about hormones, but still look like an undeveloped child? We need to look at that part of our society because those people need to go into the wood chipper and people need to understand that they're out there. A lot of these suburban parents don't believe that anything like this could ever happen in their homes. But, and I think the biggest bitch that comes out of this movie, the thing that people are so pissed off about, is the fact that yes, they are, as I mentioned before, like in 90210, children in the scenes, adult actors playing them, people who are able to consent to be in the situations and are consenting and allowing themselves to be portrayed in such a manner. But Mamuma Dusir, however the fuck you pronounce her name, is using actual children in the movie, and I do think that does raise some questions about consent.
Well, I mean does that also not bring into question, does that mean the parent has total authority over the child?
Yes.
Well, I mean, the child didn't consent to be born. And
Okay.
that seems to be this argument that, I'm hearing a lot lately about these human rights and this, that, and the other. But, I will say this. In most of from the limited exposure I've had to that industry, and I say that because I worked for a modeling and acting firm for a while. Um, these not all kids that are getting into acting are stupid and not
Mhm.
able to make decisions.
Right.
And you know what I think the bigger issue really is about this movie is pulling back the veil that people have had in front of their eyes.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm telling you right now, if you don't have kids, you need to be prepared when you do. That at an age where you are just like, what the fuck? When your 6 or 7 year old is talking about things that you only do in the bedroom with mommy when you are 99% sure they are asleep and they're talking about it, and they didn't get it from you, they didn't get it from mommy, they didn't even get it from TV because you watch and control that shit. They got it from somebody at daycare, some friend outside, some kid in the neighborhood they're playing with, because the moment, or the worst one of all, the moment you put a fucking device in their hands,
Mhm.
they're exposed to every bit of hypersexualization this society and the global society has to offer.
Mhm.
That's what's doing it. You are fighting a losing battle to try and put this genie back in the bottle. The only thing you can do is hope that when you have kids, you make the right decisions and put the right controls and boundaries in place to keep these things from going on. Don't send your kid to a dance school that's doing this kind of dancing. Don't send
Mhm.
them to cheer class. Don't let them get involved in these things that are hypersexualizing kids out of the gate. We act like it's not, we can't hide our head and act like it's not happening here. It is. It absolutely is, and we do it all under the guise of individuality and letting kids experiment and explore and find their dreams and blah blah blah. Oh, my kid wants to go be a dancer. Great. What are they doing in dance class? You know how many parents have been shocked to go and see a recital by their kids and then see them come out on stage in some outfit and do some crazy dance where they're like, "Ooh, that's the kind of thing I might expect from an older girl, not my little
Mhm.
gal." It happens every fucking day, I guarantee you, because people are not checked in. I think movies like this are good because it forces you to check in. It forces you to have a come to Jesus moment about where your child is at and what your present society is impacting your child with. Because you are no longer going to be the primary teacher in your child's life at some point. You've got to decide when that's going to be. When you put, it's like AI, right? They're trying to develop AI and make the perfect AI.
Yeah, because that's what we fucking need right
right.
now.
But the experts have said, the smartest people, even Stephen Hawking has said, you've got to do it in a closed environment, a locked environment. It cannot have access outside because anything that can think for itself, once it gets access to everything that the world has to offer, you're fucked. And that's the same thing with kids. There's nothing safe on TV for them to watch. Every kid show is replacing words and curse words with other words and, doing all of this bullshit. And it's also educating them from the brainwashing aspect, all those key little things about society. They're built in there, those moralistic values that the state preaches, as it were. They're built into these shows. So, check in with your fucking kids. And if you don't have them, be prepared for what's coming your way. This kind of movie, I understand about having kid actors playing kids in this situation, but I can guarantee you that there are kids that are in that situation of their own accord every fucking day because they want to learn to dance, or they want to be a cheerleader, or they want to be a singer, they want to be a star, they want to be famous because YouTube and every fucking thing that they look at tells them that they can be famous. All they have to do is try and dare to dream. And if it means twerking, fuck, you want to see kids twerking? Young kids twerking?
No.
Go get on fucking TikTok, people. It's happening. We do it millions of kids all day long, all week long, are doing it on TikTok, twerking and dancing and having a good time, dancing around their fucking pajamas. Have we shut TikTok down? Have we shut Facebook down? Have we shut down Instagram? Have we shut down all these avenues that all these young kids, prepubescent, pubescent, teens, the whole 9 yards, have access to and post out there every fucking day? This movie is not the problem. It's, it's at best maybe a symptom, but it's a reality check more than anything. No, Elephant Man, I agree. It doesn't make it right, but it doesn't make it wrong to expose it. The manner in which it's done, yes, people are going to argue that. I get it. But the bottom line is, again, it's a reality. That's a reality. And movies that show reality, again, if it's for gratuitous, it's not about being there for gratuitous sake. If I'm not mistaken, I mean, the things that they were talking about happening, and I watched a little clip, this, that, and the other, it looks to me very gritty, real. It's not like they were gratuitously having these girls dance for, a pedo, porn moment. I don't think that didn't seem to be what it was about. It was more about.
Have you seen some of the clips?
It was more about the journey that a girl goes through to get past that. To come through on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And having her own wake up moment that God wishes, God willing, parents would have in their child's life.
I mean, in all honesty, and this goes back to the thing that I said before. I mean, if there'd have been a way for Docure, or however the hell you pronounce the name, to have, I don't know, like I guess in France, they impart adulthood at like 16 or whatever, but they'll have like a 16-year-old troupe of people portraying the younger group. Or any other way that they could have done this. It is the age of the actresses that I think is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way on this. It really is.
Yeah, and I understand, but again, it's you're talking about a more open culture. I would want to see the reaction from French culture, right? I mean, I want to see the reactions to this movie from that perspective first. Because if it's taken as with a grain of salt, as being just an expose of as it is, almost documentary-ish,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to appalled at the fact that these kids are doing this. Well, that says a lot about the culture, that they're open to discussing it, seeing it, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not, I don't know. But if it goes against their moral grain, even, then okay, then we have to really talk about the questionable nature of it. We're holier than thou here in America, just FYI. That's our problem, is we're holier than thou. And we don't want to look behind us at what's going on in our backyard, because we do it. We do all this same shit. We do all of it ourselves. So we've got a bigger problem. If you have a problem with this kind of thing, we've got a big problem to address. A really big fucking problem. You know, because I'm shocked at the things that I see coming from our kids these days. That just flies against every old school standard and value that I was taught was supposed to be the thing, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
And it is definitely some things to watch for too. I mean, I'm getting to that point in my life where I'm pretty positive it's going to happen within probably a few years. And I look, I've got a nephew that's 7, a niece that's 4, that's going into pre-K for the first time because, my God, they got to start them that fucking early now. But
I mean, our society right now is. I'm tempted to say we're going through a very major sexual revolution right now.
you think?
Because oh yeah, and a lot of it is this fight against body shame, to where women are feeling more comfortable, especially younger generations. Promiscuous sex is more commonplace now. Less desire to get married. I mean, for God's sakes, we have a reality show, and the whole premise of the show is to fuck your way through the contestants until you find the one that you like to fuck the most and want to keep.
That sounds like my 20s.
This is where we're at as a society. Um, but Seawall says, like in the movie, there's several minutes of these dances with crotch shots. Yeah, totally okay. But just FYI, Seawall, as a parent, you can go and sit in on your child's dance class and see the same thing. There are classes that teach this kind of dancing and this modern dance and these modern dance styles. I mean, fucking pole dancing that used to just be the domain of the stripper has become commonplace in places. Even kids are taking pole dancing classes
Well, think of
for
the upper
the
body strength that you get.
sure, right? It's for the athletics of it, right? But I mean, you've got kids taking pole dancing classes. Is that right? Is that okay? And is it okay for parents to sit in there and watch them taking these classes? I mean, there's, you know, it's this weird, strange balance. It's what you're looking for in the movie,
Hmm.
or whatever it is that you're viewing, right? You know, you're in how you're going to interpret that as right or wrong is totally, it's totally, unfortunately, going to be subjective. Um, because I don't know. I don't think it's the worst thing they could have shown. You know, I mean, they had kids. There's a movie. What was it called? They made us monster. What was it? Oh God. And it was a movie set in Africa. And it was about kids that were being recruited. They would come into villages and they would capture the kids, the boys, and they would make them join the army. And they were using kid actors in these roles,
Hmm.
putting guns in their hands, having them kill their on screen parents and things like this. They're depicting this, but there wasn't a whole lot of outcry about having kids in these roles doing this, because it highlighted a very serious genocidal issue that was going on. But do we have the same feeling of unrest about children being in those roles? Lost Boys. That's the movie. Thank you, Elephant Man. Um, do we have that problem? Or is it just the problem of if there's anything sexualized involved? Because guess what? Those boys, they didn't really go. I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, Elephant Man, they didn't go into it too deep, but there were things like that going on in with these boys as well. Were they
Well, and then
actually?
there's
Yes. I mean, I one of the main boys in it was a gun put in his hand, and he had to act out killing. Was it his mother or father, Elephant Man? Who did he or he had to kill one of his own family members? That was part of his role. Were they actually killing people? No, it wasn't a snuff film, if that's what you're asking. But yes, yeah, they were acting out having to kill people. These boys were being made a part of this army and expected to kill people, and they showed scenes where these boys were firing guns and killing people. So when do we have outcry? When because both of these films are exposing a problem. I get it.
Yeah, but I mean, the kids that were out there, and Seawall pointed that out in the chat too, that were in the Lost Boys movie were not actually going and killing people, but the little girls in the Cuties movie are actually jumping down there and spreading their legs in front of people and humping the fucking ground.
Sure, and that happens in gymnastics classes every fucking day.
Yeah. And going back to the poster thing to bring this up, I hate to tell you this, there was an audience intended for the Cuties movie. And it's not the same one. Netflix doesn't have the same audience in mind as the Sundance Film Festival did.
Right. No, the way Netflix presented it, I
Mhm.
think exacerbated a minor issue. If that had not been done, I don't think the issue would have been sparked even larger. Like that was throwing gas on a fire that would have probably burned itself out very quickly. But them doing that was fucked up, and then they make the issue worse because people could have accepted this for what it was if someone had not gone to the effort to make it look like what you first supposed it was. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
It was a foolish move, and I think it's made the movie look worse than it is. Um, I can go on. I can watch America's Got Talent and watch a full team of kids ranging from 3 years old all the way up to their 20s in a dance troupe, all wearing the same one piece outfit. All the girls in the same one piece, doing the same jumps and splits and squats from 3 years old all the way up, and it doesn't affect me. I'm not seeing that. But if you put it in a movie where you expose this dancing as opposed to doing it, just documentary style in the studio where it might be happening down the street, it, people read more into it than needs to be read into it, I think.
Well, and I would argue that the dance troops for girls under a certain age as well probably shouldn't be going along with that either.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, is that where we are morally in this country? That we need to, where do we draw the line where we start to police sexualization in our children? Because that's ultimately what you have to do. You have to start policing television and movies harder and making sure that it's no longer the parents' decision what goes in front of their children to watch. It becomes the decision of those who are preventing hypersexualization, the state. And then it also relies on, okay, we've got to control the social media, the access kids have to the world. Because if you don't factor that in, you're fucked. So that means kids now can no longer be connected
Mm-hmm.
up to a certain age. These are the kind of things that you've got to implement. Now, are those rights that from a moral standpoint, are you willing to see your state, as far as the overarching state, come down on? because that's how
Well,
it's
no,
got to happen.
society does a good job of that too. And I can bring up something recent. Now, of course, you keep in mind the fact that we weren't as plugged in at the time. I believe it was my junior year of high school. The planners in my high school, for whatever reason, decided that what little bit of a cheer squad that they had, because I went to school in a small town, very small town, they decided that they needed to have a dance team. And I mean, the girls that they picked, and it's a town where everybody knows everybody. So I know everybody who was on the dance team. I could probably name them still to this day, and that was 20 years ago. Um, they were the ones that you would expect to have gone onto the dance team, and they had two sets of choreographers for the dance team in the time that I was there. I'm sure they've shuffled them around a few times at this point, but the first choreographer group got one show with the dance team because in the middle of the pep rally, about 72 seconds into the first routine, every single girl in unison dropped to the knees, rolled over onto the back, spread legs wide in full bent knees, spread legs wide, at which point everybody in the stands for the pep rally cheered loudly. And then they got up back onto their feet and continued the dance routine. That was the last time we ever saw that first set of instructors for the dance team. That was the last time anybody saw that first set of instructors for the dance team.
Sure.
Societally, we still police this kind of shit.
Sure.
And yes, of course, they were minors at the time too.
But I do find it interesting in how we police it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't, at the same time, okay, great, you get rid of those choreographers, but the next one comes out and doesn't do anything too extreme. But what about that point where all the cheerleaders turn around and they bend over and they're shaking their pom poms, and on one side or the other of the auditorium, their asses are pointing to somebody, and they're in those little short shorts in that super mini skirt, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not changing all the other things that sexualize what cheerleaders are, right? We're not removing all of the angles. We're just targeting the moments of shock value that might impact the community opinion, because we're not going down to the dance studio. Again, the dance studio where kids are learning to dance like this, that's okay, that's just a dance studio, but we don't want anything that's going to expose it to the larger public at large. Seawall says, Rob, the problem is legally this movie can be considered child exploitation. Maybe it can.
You're on the
here
line of that.
Maybe
from
here
just
it
the scenes
can,
I've seen.
but does it qualify as child exploitation in France? And or if we take it before a world court, does it need to go before a world court and be determined if it's child exploitation? Because coming from us, the only option you have for that from our laws is, okay, whether or not it can be shown. But it's not like you can't get access to the movie if you want to see it anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't go back and unfilm the thing either.
Right. You can't unring this bell that the movie is there.
Mm-hmm.
And the only laws that you could worry about it breaking are ours, but guess what? It wasn't made here. So again, that does speak a little bit to our ego as to whether or not, you know, our law, our precedents should take heed over someone else's. Nephilim says, or a legitimate rating system. TV is different from movies, which is different from advertising. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Elfman says an empowering movie for girls should be showing how to land a millionaire. They've got those out there too. They've got that. Nephilim says, at one point I brought my son to a kids movie and the advertising before it made him scream from a giant mosquito. Right. Seawall says, doesn't matter. Netflix is facing Texas Attorney General. But you can arrest the parents and the filmmakers making examples of them. But I mean, no, they're
once
French.
Again, you've got Interpol that's involved with that.
Netflix can deal with whatever they need to here in America. But guess what? That movie filmed in France. It's a French movie. France gets to decide if that's what that is. We just get to decide if what we show it to our population or not. Or what a company does with it. I understand the way Netflix approached it. There's some wrong there, but the bottom line is we don't get to say shit about this movie being made, because again, different standards, different culture, different mindset when it comes to these issues. I mean, there's, and then again, I look at our past and I think I don't know that we have a lot of room to talk about, the appropriateness of things that we do, versus, because I'm just going to put this out there. And I want you to, this goes hand in hand, in my opinion, with the replacement words for curse words that parents and people like to do, teach kids. Just because you put a 21-year-old girl who looks 14 in the role of a 14-year-old and sexualize that role, you are opening the door to pedophilia. Or, well, it's not pedophilia at that age. It's the other, whatever it's called. There's a difference
Pederasty.
between pederasty, right after puberty. But the bottom line is guess what? You're just replacing, till somebody Googles the age of the actress, they don't know that she's over 18. So the pedos, guess what they get to do? They get to sit around and they've got the perfect fantasy created for them because here's a 14-year-old in this sexualized role. Guess what? They don't need to go check on Google how old the actress is. Everything they need is right there in front of them. So you're not doing anything different. You're still exploiting children in a way just by saying someone is that age, even though they're not. Now, I get the consent and the acting and what they consent to do. I understand that argument is a side argument, but you're not changing anything when you do it the other way. You're not fixing anything. You're not stopping the exposing children and people to this and opening the door to that. None of these movies have ever done that. Lolita, movies like that have been around for years. It doesn't change the fact that it becomes jerkbait for those that want to keep in mind that is a child they're watching. So, this is something interesting from the aspect of porn sites. A lot of people have been doing 3D animated porn. But what many were attempting to do was get their pedophilia porn up on websites by doing 3D animation versus actual actors, right? But guess what? The porn sites are saying, no, you can't depict someone in that role. So when there's porn that talks about teens and stuff like that, porn makers are going to great lengths to make sure that in the dialogue now that the actress is, they're making it clear that this role is an 18-year-old or above. They're making that clear, and they're not allowing this pedophilia 3D animated porn on their sites. So the porn industry is staying on top of this. The upfront porn industry. Let's go with that, okay? Things like Pornhub, the big boys. They're doing their best to keep this kind of stuff off of their sites and to keep it as above board as possible. So there's not even the fantasy being created that this is someone that's a minor. And I think that's important to note, that, even the industry that this would be rooted in is actually taking steps to be preventative about this. So, this expose of hypersexuality in young children, I will tip my hat to anybody that says that they think it went too far in what it was showing. But I'll take it with a grain of salt as well, because I have to look at the logical realities of everything involved and understand that it's not my battle. It's not something that I have a position to take in it. And a lot of that, again, just goes to the fact that I had my wake-up call when my kids were young. It's fucking scary, dudes. This movie, this is not the scary part. That's not the scary part. It's the real people they're dealing with that's the scary part. They're going to learn so much more than than you even imagine, and they're going to deal with so many fucking scary individuals that they don't even realize are scary. It's, yeah, it's so that's that. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know what to do about. What do you do about Netflix? How do you deal with that?
A lot of people are canceling it.
I mean, does that make it a Netflix? Oh, I don't know. Shit. Is that a boycott Netflix thing?
Yeah, using the power of the dollar to try and get them to go the way that they want them to do it.
You know, now I'm going to put this out there as well. Netflix is the kind of organization that the top brass is not looking at the screen grabs for all the movies that are going on the website. Maybe
I
they
think
should
they'd have a
be.
hard time ignoring this one.
Right, there was a chain that got passed through for that to occur.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm willing to bet it didn't go all the way up to the top. Now that doesn't excuse it. I'm just saying, Netflix as a mother company, the best I think that we can get from them is like a retraction, maybe a retraction of the movie on their site, and them saying, "We're so sorry this got by and was allowed to happen," because I mean, did we cancel Disney whenever the Little Mermaid had penis castle all over the front? No, they just redid the cover of the Little Mermaid and sent it back out. you know, it didn't matter that an artist did penises all through the castles undersea there in Atlantis. I mean, it's one of those things. Who made that decision? So that's who needs to be responsible. Is who made the decision to put that forward. Um, Nephilim says, "Are we get?" Seawall says, "Rob, we are talking about spirit versus letter of the law. The letter is clear, and again, that's our laws that we're talking about. And if Netflix exploited children, then Netflix needs to suffer the consequences of that, if that's what it's deemed as. But the movie itself, we can't hold them responsible. Again, it's another country. It's a foreign film. It's under another umbrella than us, I think. Or is there a global court for that, Ed?
Interpol would be the only thing that I would think of.
Like a global court that looks at like would that fall under child trafficking and exploitation? Would that be under the same umbrella? So
Yeah.
is there any global court that makes decisions on this or passes judgment on this?
Interpol. Have you never heard of Interpol before?
Well, I know that they're police, but I'm talking about courts. Any police body isn't the one that's casting judgment and saying, "Okay, you've got to take this film off the market." Because
I would assume that there is a court attached with Interpol. I don't know enough about the inner workings of it.
Right. Well, Saddam Hussein faced a global court, didn't he? Or was supposed to? Did?
I believe so.
So that would be the same court, I would assume. Alpha Man says, "We are the global court." No, we are too big for our britches in most senses of the word. Nephilim says, "Penis Castlegate was one individual. This is systematic." Well, I don't. This is systematic.
This is systemic, not systematic.
Systemic, excuse me. I get that you say it's systemic, but this is a beast in the industry that's gone on for a long time. I mean, the slippery slope to the present day of media was a long time ago. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, when you started seeing changes in, the moral values of the common show, when the Leave It to Beavers were going the way of the wolf, and the Three's Companies and the sexual revolution were taking hold, and family values were changing when you watched Eight is Enough, and you saw the differences in how generations were being dealt with, and, things were going. I watched the death of the family values that were taught and the morals that were attempted to be taught on television. I mean, when you watched police shows, the killing wasn't glorified. Now It's like, how cool can we make this next death? Right?
Hmm.
So whether it's violence, whether it's corruption, whether it's sexuality, whether it's children, adults, teenagers, elderly, again, the genie's out of the bottle. You can't backtrack enough. I mean, you talk about a rating system. Look at your ratings now. Look at what, oh my God, we've got everything now. If there's racism, that's put up there as one of those warnings. Racism, fear, suicide, pill
Well,
use. Every little thing that they do that might be socially unconscious, or they're listing it now. So what? They list it. Yep, they put that up there for 2.1 seconds, and that is supposed to be the deterrent for many parents to keep their kids from watching this shit. No, you need to fucking go look at it yourself and turn the goddamn television off. Take the tablet away. Every medium that can deliver these kind of things to your kids is ongoing and completely out of your control, unless it's specific to your own kids. Now, I am going to say that I believe that there is this, I don't know, this QAnon conspiracy theory that's been going on for quite some time now about this large cabal of pedophiles and sex traffickers in the upper echelons of global society, et cetera, et cetera. Um, it's I have to sit on the fence on this one and go, okay, is this the same? Is this the Illuminati still, or is this the new group? Is this what we're calling? Is this what we're referring to them as now? What is what happened to the lizard people? Are those gone? We're not doing Illuminati, and we're not doing lizard people, and we're not doing big banks. Now it's the global pedophiles that have control of the world. I'm not buying into that, and especially the noise that it's creating. Like, now everybody, look at what happened with Wayfair. I mean,
mhm.
come on, look at that shit, and the round pie restaurant and things. Sure, a lot of people are convinced this, that, and the other. I get, but you know what? I don't know. I can't buy into this next global domination theory,
Well, the
because
thing
it's
that
going to
goes
take
along
your
though
eye off the ball.
with the pedophile rings, though, the thing you do have to keep in mind though is that they're actually getting arrests that go along with it. I mean, the news isn't covering it right now, but they've got operations going in Georgia and Ohio and Indiana where they're actually finding these missing and exploited children left and right. And the
Yeah.
mainstream news won't fucking cover it. They won't say butt fuck anything about it.
Well, my thought is this: they've been catching they've been dealing with child trafficking for, like, I don't know, like right about as long as there's been children. Like, this is not new. Pedophilia, it's not new, but it is becoming a larger discussion. And I understand, I'm not defending pedophiles. I'm not defending any laws or groups that support the pedophile movement or any of that. I am in no way in support of that. But what I am saying is, this has been around for a long time. And if you think
Mhm.
that is like the mindset of the global elite, that it's all about child trafficking and child pornography, because for some reason the wealthy elite, the only the they must all be satanic, and their big thing is child sacrifice and diddling children. Like, that's what they choose to do with their time. That's the big thing, right? No, I can't buy into that. You might as well tell me that the United States fought the Revolutionary War to protect slavery, like they want to teach in California.
It's
So,
not just California.
huh? Well,
It's not just California.
but they're the ones that got called out by the president and said we're not going to fund you we're not going to fund your education if you're going to teach this shit.
We'll take your funding away unless you teach that America's the greatest country, the best country. I have the best country. I love my country.
Well, I don't have a problem with them teaching the truth about America, but what I do have a problem is trying to rewrite history so that you change present perspective of what America is. Fuck you on that. Um, but I don't know. It's that this whole child pornography thing is you've got to expect that you're going to see a lot more of this because of a broader reach of the internet and finding people and NSA tracking and this and that and the other. I mean, it's just inevitable that, you're going to find a lot of it because now you actively have ways to really track it down and find it. But do I believe it's some global cabal? Yeah. Any more than I believe that there's a global cabal controlling all the drug traffic in the world.
See, your problem right now is that there's a reason that you don't believe that it's a global cabal. See, what you need to do is go find a cheap, red, vented ball cap with white lettering on it and put it on, and then you will believe everything that QAnon tells you. Make sure the white lettering says "Make America Great Again." Then you'll believe everything.
Yeah. Sewell says the diddling kids is not because they are all pedos. It is more that they want blackmail material on each other to make the club as exclusive as possible. Yeah, but okay. Well, you're a fool to think that they have to target kids for that, because I can promise you, there's 100 other ways that they can get blackmail material on somebody. I mean, there really are. There's lots of ways you can do it. I mean, one roofie.
Yeah, I mean, look at my YouTube channel.
One roofie, and you've got 4 hours to really fuck somebody up, and you don't have to get a kid involved at all.
How the fuck do you know that?
What roofie does?
The exact time frame.
Because I can read. But yeah, you can think of all sorts of scenarios that don't involve kids where you can stage with somebody that just roofie them and just set them up in line. Get a fucking donkey. That says a lot more than a kid. I'm just saying. They make some amazing. I don't know. You can do all sorts of stuff. So, blackmail. I mean, you don't even have to have kids involved. Photoshop is so good now. You don't even have to get kids involved. You just fucking take pictures off the internet and create scenes and blackmail somebody. This idea that's I don't know. It's just it starts to lean into too much conspiracy for me. To where people do these things like the Wayfair hoax and all of this shit that was, these different things that go on. It's
and
people,
all of that to remind the audience that 9/11 was an inside job.
And what is, I would honestly have to ask, how many of these people that are like touting these conspiracy theories about the pedo rings and the whole thing, this global cabal, actually have kids, and they're worried about it for the safety of their kids. Like, this is not a fear I have. I have more of a fear from the individual pervert than I do someone coming and grabbing my kid to take them off and sell them across the world. I can promise you that. That's the people that are closest to them. Those are the ones you have to worry about. I don't care what anybody says, because I stand in a group of 10 people. 7 out of those 10 people are freaks in some way, shape, or form or other. Probably borderline perverts. Are you a pervert yourself? That's what you have to ask yourself. You don't have to be a pedophile. I'm just saying. Doesn't mean you're a pedophile. But I mean, it is what it is. People are going to make what they want out of everything. Now I can't go. Now it's just going to fuck with things that I watch now. Now I'm just going to be We're like, oh, goddamn, now I can't
You know what
watch
the
them.
best part about this whole thing is? You said you didn't think we were going to make the full 2 hours.
Well, we did. So we're going to get the hell out of here. Fine, Ed. We're going to get out of here before it runs too much long. But we started a couple of minutes, so fuck it. Deal with it, Ed. Hush. You
I
talk too
told
much.
you.
You talk too much about
I
interesting
told you
things.
that we were going to. I
Okay,
have over three
Mom.
at this point.
Okay, Mom. God. Hey, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to get the hell out of here. If you look down there in the description, you'll see stuff like us at the Gin Gap P on Twitter where you can reach out to us. You can also find us on Discord. Our Discord server is a great place to have conversations. You'll see some of these crazy people that we have in our chat spewing their craziness in the Discord server as well. There you will also see people like Jay Edgar occasionally roaming around. Then you've also got us Freedom Scoop. There's a link down there to Freedom Scoop. Check us out on Freedom Scoop. You'll also see people like Jay Edgar, Wyatt from Roundtable Decision. We've also got Freckles and Britt, the R-rated conservative. We've got Stephen Ignoramus. Um, did I miss anybody?
No, that's it.
Okay, good. But yeah, check out freedomscoop.com. Don't forget there's merch on there. We've got merch on there. We've got a t-shirt. We've got a coffee mug. And if you put the Gin Gap in as a promo code, you can get 15% off your t-shirt purchase. I believe, Ed, you've got a t-shirt out there somewhere on Freedom Scoop too, don't you? Or
I actually don't.
You got to fix that, bro. See your little blue logo out there running around in the world would be nice. But we are going to get out of here. We appreciate you listening to us ramble on about, well, I mean, things that are important, but I think I think we as a society got to start taking a few more things with a grain of salt. I hate to speak to the inevitability of where we are with things, but you know, there's bigger problems than trying to figure out, you know, did we cast the wrong kids? Should we have casted kids in this movie versus, our people on the far left and the far right going to blow up our country? That one's more concerning to me. I'm just saying, it's me. Ed, do you have things going on? You got
I
anything?
do. I've got a couple things coming up here in the near future for myself. You guys tune into my channel tomorrow at 5:30 Central Time. I will be hosting Stephen Ignoramus, and I am searching for a third chair for the discussion. We are going to talk about California's Senate Bill 145 and what it actually means versus what it is perceived to be meaning in a very special Ed Talk, and then we will also take listener questions. I will be on Call Me Ignorant on Monday to talk about the aftermath of the Kenosha riots. A couple weeks later now, after all the riots are done, and what the city's doing to rebuild. So go over there to Stephen Ignoramus' channel and check me out over there. Otherwise, you can find me weekday morning, 7:30 for Contemporary, or Monday afternoon at 5:30 Central for the Red Net Show with my wonderful co-host Elaine. You can find me all of that over on freedomscoop.com or over on my channel, which should have been linked in the description below, but I guess we kind of did this at the last minute, so.
Right. I may not have, I guess I didn't reach out and ask you for those. I usually have you send those over to me. But if you'll kick them to me, I'll make sure they go back in. They go in the description for the after watchers. We are, I don't know. It's kind of up in the air, but the expectation is we'll be back again on Wednesday at 9:30 for our regular episode of Shooting the Shit. And then, of course, again, Friday at 8:30, just like tonight, for our regular broadcast. Hopefully, we will have John back for those. I don't know where we stand with that. So you may see Ed here again on Wednesday, or it may just be me, or there may not be a show. I don't know. There's no telling. It's all up in the air. I'm a little confused, and maybe a touch scared.
We'll make sure you're taken care of. Don't worry. That's the Freedom Scoop pledge. We'll make sure you're taken care of.
But those times will be in the Eastern time zone, the one and only true time zone for those of you who are ever unsure. Other than that, Ed, do you have any final takes on the conversation or the night?
No, I was actually glad to be here. Glad to get some of this discussion out here. I'm glad I actually got some more perspective from this movie because all I'd heard was the right wing response to it, and there's a lot of things that go along with this. I was glad I was able to add to the conversation. Glad we could talk about what's going on in the country. It's nice to have some other voices every once in a while, but I'm going to stick with my co-host for now, or my permanent side voice.
Well, we appreciate you coming on and filling in for John. Ed, as always, you are a rock star helper and addition to the show. So much love and much appreciation. Much love out there to the chat that was with us this evening. So we're going to get the hell out of here. And as usual, Ed, when you're here on the show, I will always defer to your amazingly awesome sign out, and I'll give that to you. Have a good night, folks.
Never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Take care.
Peace.
The war will begin.